My name is Herb Adams. I live on State Street in the Parkside neighborhood of Portland, and I teach at SMCC. In fact, I teach the Constitution, which we began to study this day, the second day of classes, since the resumption after the end of the last semester. History will tell you that one of the strangest sidelines ever wandered down by the United States Supreme Court is that leads to corporate personhood, and the decision made in Citizens United just 2 years ago, because corporate personhood comes from the court, not from the cradle, and not from an act of Congress. The 14th Amendment to the Constitution, which I've just passed out to you, is one of the longest amendments to the Constitution, but you only have to read the first two sentences, and in fact, the first two words of the very first sentence, which says, all persons shall have equal protection of the law. This was passed in 1868 to guarantee to those freed by the Civil War, the freed men, the rights of American citizenships and full recognition as human beings. It turned out to mean just about anything but. It's the direct path that leads to the resolution before you tonight. In the first 30 years that was in the Constitution, there were about 150 cases involving it that went to the Supreme Court. 15 of them involved the rights of blacks. Blacks lost every one of them, except one. 135 of them had to do with corporate rights. All of them were won, except 4 of them. Because the railroads knew what those two words meant, all persons. And their struggle was to get the United States Supreme Court to identify railroads as persons. In the years since, they've achieved that step by step, to the extent that they stand now shy of all the rights of a human being with the exception of the ability to cast a vote. There's no industrial democracy in the world that stands at that point in recognition of non-flesh and blood things as humans other than us. It has been used to strike down the most fundamental things, the rights of bakers not to have to work more than 15 hours a day, the Lochner decision you heard earlier. A Maine law that said you had to be at least 2.5 feet tall to work in the weaving looms of Lewiston, because any smaller, the looms would snatch you in. Struck down by the United States Supreme Court at the behest of corporations. Corporations now have all the rights, almost all the rights of a human being, plus immortality. They do not breed, but they live. They do not have children, but they can reproduce. They cannot die in war, because we do it for them. They have no flesh and they have no blood, because we shed ours for them. Never born, they cannot die. They have now the right to free speech, plus the right to spend as much money, because money equals free speech, under another Supreme Court decision. Given this, you are being asked to vote against your own best interests. The City of Portland's a corporation. You are incorporated under the rights, under the laws of the city of the state of Maine. You have a corporation counsel, a good lawyer sitting up front there. You have every right, except that, to cast a ballot. And there are 2 cases where the Supreme Court came within 1 and then in 2 votes of giving corporations a ballot. Men and women of the council, I think if you respect the Constitution, if you respect human rights, and respect the American democracy we hope to leave to our children, that Portland should play its own small but very important part in passing the resolution before you tonight. Because in no respect have we heard the last word about this issue in our complex democracy. Thank you.
And this has been the People's Mic, live from City Hall. Not live when you see it, but live now. We're all live. It's been the People's Mic from City Hall. Whose City Council chambers? Our City Council chambers. Whose government? Our government. We're taking it back. Join us.